Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Naomi. How's everybody?
Good
Good
morning.
morning. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, Carolis. I I would like to call your attention briefly to the latest in the announcements, right? And which is, and this was emailed out automatically, right? As soon as I posted it, there is a quiz one coming up. Uh, so there were two memos actually. The first one is quiz. Why isn't it not available? I just don't. This was sent out by email like last night. I already posted it. Like, why is it? Oh, something's not right, huh? I was supposed to be until December 23rd. Something. So, quiz one has been posted, right? But it's going to be available from this Friday, 0 hour Friday, right? 12 a.m. Until Sunday. So there's a 3-day window, and then you have 120 minutes to finish it. So this is the first. This is the first real exam. Okay, you remember there are 4 exams that will count towards your semester grade, and this is the first one. Okay, this is the first one, and then
So the video is not on.
I'm sorry. I didn't know what's alrighty, so I should have. Alrighty, so you should be able to see it now. So in the announcements, right? If you go to the announcements folder, right, this will be, you will find this. So it's not visible yet, but it's gonna be visible. It's gonna be activated on your screen as of 12 a.m. Friday. Okay. Now this is the first exam, first real exam, right? Everything else so far has been just practice test. This is the real test, and it's I'm gonna take you to the assignments folder shortly, but the second one that I posted yesterday is so this one was posted actually, last night, like, October 5th, 2:42 a.m. This one was posted yesterday, Monday morning, 11 a.m. This is about your vaccination because, of course, if you have any, I mean, our class is, designated as hybrid, meaning, meaning that, one day, I mean, at least one day out of the entire semester, we will meet offline, but that will be, towards the end of the semester, for final. But, but all exams are, on Connect, so unofficially, it's not likely that we will meet for final, but officially it is hybrid. Officially, we will have to meet officially. I mean, for the record. But if you have any other hybrid class or in-person class, you must meet the vaccination requirement, because otherwise, read this carefully. If you don't get vaccinated, you are putting yourself in peril of not only losing the course, but also financial aid, scholarships, and other enrollment-dependent supports you will receive. So if you have anything like this, and I've seen, I don't think, I thought, that the resistance would be very minimal, but some people are really resisting to get vaccinated. I don't know. It could be, I got vaccinated. I'm fine. I don't have any side effects. Of course, some people say, you never know. Some people are not allergic to. Some people don't have any symptoms. Some people have no problem. But it always, you may, even if 1%, if it only happens with 1%, you may be that 1%, or 0.1%. Yeah, I don't have, I mean, if you believe you might be, falling into that 0.1%, I don't have any argument with that. But I haven't seen anybody around myself in my family who got, well, who knows, I'm one of those, 99.99%, but you could be, in one of those, 0.01%, extremely rare, unlucky, case. But still, if your family have got vaccinated and nobody has any, side effect, serious side effect from vaccination, biologically, you are not likely to have any, any side effect. But also think about it. I mean, it's either if you don't get vaccinated, and then you cannot enter the BMCC premises. So please keep that in mind. And in the assignments. So this is quiz 1, right? It's not visible, right? It's not visible. It's gonna become visible on October 8th. And it's on 2 topics we've covered so far: return on investment and financial statements. And financial statements, you might wonder, didn't we just start on financial statements this Tuesday? No, we've already started on that. We've already started on the financial statements, like 2-3 weeks ago, right? Going back to, I don't have, so here, so we started on, it's a first topic in the financial statement, intro 1, 2, 3, 4. It was last available on September 26th. That means, it's 5 days, the videos are available for 5 days. So if it was last available on the 26th, that means, it was posted on this date. In other words, this September 21st, since September 21st, we have been in this topic, and I've been telling you over and over, this is the main lecture. Collaborate is only a reflection. Collaborate is only a review. right? Collaborate is only a review. And its main lecture is this. So I've been telling you over and over not to rely on the collaborate because that's not the main lecture. It's only a review. And because it is review, that was the original intention, not to double the same thing. Um, so that in a review we can discuss more in more richly, right? With more without any time constraint, because the main lecture is on a timeline. We have to cover this until this date, and we have to get to a certain milestone by this date. Otherwise we can't cover everything on the syllabus. Okay, so this is a very intense course if you haven't realized it yet. In terms of not only in terms of its sheer depth of thinking, you have to but also in terms of its the amount of knowledge that you have to absorb, right? The depth and the breadth, the depth and the depth of the thinking, the breadth of the knowledge. In terms of all of these two aspects, this is a very intense course. So if you have a laid back attitude, it's going to be very, very difficult, right? You have to be really super diligent, and you have to keep up with the main lecture. And as I said, because of the sheer amount and depth, right? The main lecture has to stay on track, and some peripheral discussions cannot be handled in the main lecture, and so that is the purpose. That's the purpose of the collaborate. We if and the peripheral discussions can only it also means if you don't understand, if there is something you don't understand from the main lecture, then you bring it to the collaborate, and that's the venue. So the collaborate is the venue for um, explaining and discussing the points that you haven't um, uh, fully understood.
Professor, I have two questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Angelica.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
just go ahead.
for
Yeah.
the quiz, is it going to be through Blackboard, or we're going to like first click on Blackboard and then it will take us to Connect? Or it's not going to be on Connect at all?
Oh, what, the quiz one?
Yeah, the first quiz this weekend.
First quiz, yeah. Oh, no, it's strictly on Connect. It's Connect.
Okay.
Okay. So
And yeah.
quiz one is the last Blackboard. Quiz one is the last Blackboard exam. And from midterm, it won't be on Blackboard. You'll have to do it directly on Connect.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then yeah, thank you. And then my second question, when you
Mhm.
interconnect, there's the chapter 2 that says the pre-built problems.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
definitely have to do those problems before October 8, right?
Well, chapter two problem is actually due October 8th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and because it was on there since September something, I believe.
Yeah, September 30th. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the only practice. That's the only chapter. Oh no, that's not the only thing. Um, also, there is chapter 4 pre-built problems, which are already, I think, which has already started, and due some later date, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it must be visible. It must be visible at if you haven't, if you're not on Connect, please, get um, if you have already got your, there are only 30 students on the Connect roster, but look, Connect, in total, I have like 61 students. I mean, on the roster, BMCC roster, there are more than 61, but the active ones who have been taking the active ones who have been doing the practice problems so far are like 61. So that means I still need 31 more students to be on the Connect. You need your eventually you need your own access code, but until then, please, I provided the super code, so please, get on Connect, because chapter 2 problem. Chapter 2 problems. And chapter 2 problems are due. And so some of them are not visible yet. I will, I haven't, but you will see, you'll be able to see at least, chapter 2, 4, 5 problems, right? They should be visible. So this is the only thing that is due on the 8th, and then the other ones have, you see, later due dates, right? Yeah. So so did that answer your question?
Yes, I also wanted to bring up the fact that some of my classmates they actually bought the book that you mentioned back in the
Mhm,
beginning of the
mhm,
semester, back in August.
mhm.
And some of them have yet to receive a confirmation code or anything, any updates about the book, basically.
Yeah, I understand. So that's why I gave you. I also gave you the contact information of uh, the McGraw-Hill campus representative. So in one of the announcements, yeah, you see,
Professor?
uh, yeah. Hold on, I haven't answered this question yet. Uh, so there is a campus representative who can handle this, because if you whatever the contact information on their website, that goes directly to, like, McGraw-Hill's um, central, central headquarter or whatever, and they don't know, they cannot track each and every, they don't have, they cannot track each and every product. And this is a custom product. So custom products, uh, only the campus representatives have they have the resources and information to track the custom products. Okay. Um, so you need to contact this person. Actually, this person is this person is not there anymore. I don't know whether she quit or, but there's her there is her successor, right? So they will take care of it. You so contact them, because they said the books have been printed. That was like last week or the week before last. So it will be, and if they are not responding to you, uh, or the books are not, they're not responding to you as for the, the status of the book or whereabouts, the tracking information or whatever, then simply cancel the order and just buy the ebook, right? That would be the easiest way. I try to I basically wanted you to get the custom book because it's $89, whereas the ebook is $130. So, but if um, um, if you don't, if you can't get any tracking information from them, then you can't, we can't wait any longer. Just cancel the order and just tell them that you will cancel and then you get the refund and just go for the ebook. And ebook is just simple and straightforward. You just pay um, uh, you, you just pay online and then you get the access code. Ebook is just access code. You get then access to all the text and the resource materials. Access to everything. Yes, and someone else asked a question, right? Yeah, who had a question? Carolus?
No, yeah, it was me. No, I wasn't asking a question. I was just going to tell you about the number that you put there to call or whatever. I had called and I told them that I still haven't received my book and that it's been like over a month. And the person who I was speaking to, like, basically told me that they didn't know why, and that's kind of it. And that's like literally all they told me. I was just like, okay, so what do I do? And then they were like, well,
Uh,
you can wait. It'll
who,
probably show.
who did you call? You called this number, or did you call this number?
I called the. Wait, what are
Did
you
you call
calling?
this number?
Wait, hold on.
I've been well.
I called
I
the
just
like
told.
I called. Yeah, you just said that the person doesn't work there anymore, basically. But I guess that's why they were basically telling me that they didn't know about anything, and I was just like, okay, so I'm just gonna
I,
cancel it because I
yeah,
mean
yeah, yeah,
that's the only
yeah.
thing
I
left
just
to do.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's better, it's better that you cancel that. I mean, it took too long, and they don't. Um, and if you call this number, and usually this is the person, not the McGraw Hill Central, because um, like if you go to their website and on the website, there's their email and their representative number, but the representative number is their obviously to will take you to their central, and then from their central they wouldn't know. I mean, they don't, they can't track, every product that, they have. And as I said, this is a custom book, and the custom book, they can't even track every custom edition because, there will be, other than their main product, there will be, hundreds of custom products. And the custom products can only be, tracked by the party that was directly involved with the custom product. So um, again, looks like Tara Stranfel, she isn't working there anymore, or but whoever is the successor should know. But the successor, it seems like the the successor is new to this business, and she's it seems like she's still um, learning. So it's like it's very irresponsible of them too, because um, if someone is leaving that position, and then if someone new is coming in, then at least the one who is leaving the position should train that person to the uh, until the new person ramps up. But then this person was also new, kind of new, I mean, hired since after, if I remember, because there was another person a predecessor to this person until the end of May, and that person moved to another position. This person took over after May, so she was there just during the summer, and then I don't know whether she moved to another position or there was a new person. So again, it's a chaos there. So anyway, without okay, so it took a big chunk of our time, almost 29 minutes. So let's get back to the income statement. So in our last class, we talked about basically, the big structure. Big structure of income statement is, income and expenses, right? Now, pay attention to the large font and the bold font, large bold font, and indent. Obviously, the large bold fonts are the major line items, right? And then these indented line items are minor line items, right? I mean, you can easily, with some, good sense, you can easily tell, oh, why are these, not in bold? Why are not these in, why are these line items indented? If it is indented, obviously it is a subcategory of the non-indented title, line item. Isn't that right? I mean, so then that means, the major line items are income, expenses, right? Then you might wonder, well, what is then CGS? CGS is, it's also a major line item, but one part of the expenses, right? And then operating expense is another part of the expenses, major part. So CGS and operating expenses, or OPEX, are two major parts of the expenses, right? And then next major line item is operating income. So operating income is the result of subtracting expenses from income. And so, and I told you there are two major sources of income. The primary source of income is sales revenue, of course, sales revenue, right? All the companies must sell something, right? There can be no other, there can be no business that don't sell anything. I mean, either whether it is a tangible good or non-intangible good, whether it is, service or, merchandise, I have to sell something, right? So sales revenue is the primary source of income. And the secondary source of income is the investment income. Investment income is, a kind of passive income, right? If you have a rental business, right? Rental income is a kind of passive income, right? Because let's say your major line of business is retail. But just because you're retail, it doesn't mean you cannot go into another type of business. I mean, McDonald's is a very good example. McDonald's has, McDonald's is basically a retail. I mean, fast food, that's a retail, right? What else can you And it's a known fact that McDonald has, all the prime location they have real estate properties in all the prime locations across the United States, or not just the United States, globally. Wherever there is McDonald's, right, it's the prime real estate, right? The location is the prime location for real estate. So, for example, let's say they close a store there, right? But even if they close a store, it doesn't mean they are selling that property. They can rent out that property. They can, right? They can rent out. They can sublet the property because it's a prime location, right? And also, then there will be rental income, right? And that rental income is a passive income. It's a kind of passive income, right? Because you're not that's not the earned income from operating activity. On the other hand, sales revenue is earned income, right? It's through the sales revenue is as opposed to passive income, it's an active income. But actually, there's no such terminology as active income. Passive income is a legitimate terminology, but the I'm just using the word active just to just to juxtapose it with the word passive, right? But there's no such terminology as active income. Although even if you use that, it can be understood, right? It can be understood. But it is earned income, right? What is the opposite of passive income is earned income. Now, yeah, because sales revenue is what they earn through their operating activity, right? So investment income is just like rental income, a kind of passive income, right? And so that's a secondary source of income, right? Companies can, I believe I talked about this last time. They have, profit, accumulated profit, and using the accumulated profit, they have two choices. They can reinvest in their own production capacity, right? In other words, reinvest in their growth, or they can invest it in the stock market or bond market. And why do they do that? If their growth potential is let's say if there is only one reason why they would do that. Their growth potential is less than the stock market growth potential. Then it's, for example, their expected growth rate of their own business is, let's say, 3% a year, right? But on the other hand, the stock market is growing on average at 5% a year, or even 10% a year. That would make more. Then think about it. Wouldn't it make more sense? Wouldn't it make more sense to put your accumulated profit into the stock market? Mhm. Because that would only make sense to do that, right? And usually that happens with the companies that are mature. Mature companies don't grow fast. The fact that they are already mature company means they have very little room for growth. And if they have very little room for growth, it's like 2% expected growth rate, or even 0% expected growth rate. So whereas stock market is growing at 10% a year, it's much better to put the money in the stock market than their own growth. Because, well, anyway, we're gonna come back to that later. So Returns and allowances, I believe I explained this last time. Um, Returns are obvious, so that's a negative. That's why it is in negative, so that from what you sold, customers returned that product, so you had to pay them. You had to refund them, so that would be a minus, right? Negative from your sales revenue. And then what's an allowance? Allowance is only between the channel members. If you are a supplier, I mean, and there will be a manufacturer who buys from the part and component supplier. For example, Dell is a manufacturer, and so it happens only in B2B. Allowances are discount given to supply channel members in B2B, business to business, right? So channel members are like, manufacturer and raw material supplier. That's a channel member, right? These two are channel members because they are in supply channel. So computer manufacturer Dell will, order parts and components from, the manufacturer of parts and components. For example, microchips, they will buy from Intel or Hewlett Packard or whatever. Dell will buy microchips from Hewlett Packard or Intel or AMD. Now, they are basically, then supplier and buyer, right? Also, there are, many, other small parts and components, right? Dell doesn't make all of them, right? Dell only builds the computer from these, parts and components, right? So the parts and components are supplied by, smaller manufacturers. And if Dell is making 1,000 computers, right? Then they will order parts for 1,000 computers, right? But if these companies, these manufacturers of parts and components may give a discount, they will give a discount if you buy more than 10,000, right? For big volume purchase, we'll give you like 2% discount, 5% discount. That is, allowances, right? So if you just by using AutoSum, okay. So by using AutoSum, right? Think about it. Because this one is already negative, if you simply sum everything, this will be automatically subtracted, right? Using AutoSum, you'll automatically get, right, the net revenue, because you subtracted returns and allowances. That's net revenue. It's not net income. You might say, shouldn't we call it net income because this is the result of all of these, not just the sales revenue. Logically that may make sense, but this is not called net income. Net income is net profit, right? This is called net revenue, right? Because this is relatively a minor part, right? This is relatively a minor part of, because it's a secondary source of income, this is relatively minor. Now, so net income is something that will come as a at the conclusion, right? At the bottom of the income statement as the conclusion of everything. Now, here revenue. Let's think about revenue, right? Revenue verbally, people want to define, when I ask, students, what is the definition of revenue, they try to find verbal definition. Forget about verbal definition, because verbal definition is not closed-ended. Verbal definition is always open-ended, because it always evolves. I mean, evolve is a euphemism, right? Actually, it just is loosely defined when, from one student to another, everyone has different wording. That's the problem. That's the problem with the verbal definition. The point is, revenue is what you receive as payment for selling something, right? That's the verbal definition. But then, some people confuse revenue with confuse it with profit. Some people and that is downright wrong. If you confuse revenue with profit, that is wrong, no matter how it is worded. But most people understands it correctly, but the wording varies from one person to another, and then that's not what that's something that should be prevented. That's something that should be avoided. Everyone using different wording, because if you leave it open to interpretation, everybody will come up with their own interpretation, and even if they have the concept, it will be all phrased differently, and that's not science. If you come up with, for the same concept, if you come up with different interpretation, it's the downside of the liberal arts. That's the downside of the humanities. It's like, humanities subjects like, literature, especially literature, right? Accuracy and precision is not their primary concern. In literature, they celebrate open-ended interpretation. No, but in science, everything must be closed-ended, right? There should be no variation in result. If you use the same process, you have to get to the same result, right? There can be no personal interpretation of the same phenomenon, right? If it is art, yeah, you can have your own interpretation of, but that's art, okay? So we don't, actually in science, verbal definitions are pariah, okay? They are really, especially in economics, finance, verbal definition, anything verbal is despised. Why? Because verbal definitions, you speak with math in economics, finance, physics, in the natural sciences. We speak in math, not not in verbiage, right? Because verbiage can always mislead, because it can be it's open-ended, and it can be all very, it can be nebulous. In other words, very foggy, cloudy, right? Without really hitting the nail. So if we define revenue is basically what? Price times quantity sold, right? Revenue is price times quantity sold, right? Why? Think about it. Suppose suppose we are Best Buy and we sell computers. Best Buy sells all consumer electronics, but let's say Best Buy sells only one product. Let's Dell computer Model X. Just say only Model X, and let's say Model X is $500. Model X, Best Buy sells it for $500. Model X is $500. Then, if you sell one unit of Model X, then your revenue is $500, right? And then if you sell 10 units, revenue is what? 500 times 10, $5,000. If you sell 100 units, 500 times 100, so 50,000. If you sell 1,000 units, 500,000, right? And if you sell 0 units, 0. Revenue is 0. Isn't that right? It's very straightforward. It's quite straightforward. So there is no better definition than price times quantity sold, right? There's no arguing about it. It's indisputable. No matter how you put it in words, right? I told you words are pariah, right? In economics and finance and in science in general. You don't have to put it into many words. But how concise and compact is it? Total TR stands for total revenue. Revenue is equal to price times quantity, and it's infallible and indisputable, right? Infallible and indisputable. There's no gray area about it, right? But verbal definitions always end up with some gray area. Of course, you'll have to really clean it up neatly. I mean, if you want to put it into a verbal definition, you have to really organize it neatly and concisely with no redundant words or with no gray area. But unless you are capable of doing that at a split second, right? And if you can do that, if you can come up with such a verbal definition, neat, concisely organized, neat, and with no gray area, if you can come up with verbal definition like that in a split second, that's wonderful. That's really a talent. But not everyone has such a talent. So in that case, mathematical definition is the best thing, right? Because it is infallible. There's no gray area. Everything is, it's very concise, right? Compact and concise and indisputable. There can be no argument about it. So you might wonder, so what if, this was a very, simplified example because we assumed, we are selling only one type of computer, a single model. And we can say, but what if we sell multiple models of, different other manufacturers? It's still possible. It's all, same. Suppose we have three models. Model number 1, model number 2, model number 3, or model X, Y, Z. Well then, price times model 1, price of model 1 times quantity sold of model 1 plus price of model 2 times quantity sold of model 2 plus price of model 3 times quantity sold of model 3, right? We can expand it to any number. But since writing that if we have n number of models that we are selling, then we can express it succinctly and compactly using the summation sign, right? We did, this is not, you should be familiar with this now because that was the first thing we had in the ROI. So in that case, if we have n models, then summation, summing up everything, summing up all pi times qi, where I runs from 1 through n. That means, I is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that ellipsis, right, all the way to n, right? So anyway, so no better definition than, p times q, right? Now let's move on to the expenses. Then we will need expenses fall into two categories: direct cost and indirect cost. And direct cost is basically a cost that's directly related to production, and indirect cost is not completely unrelated, but rather not directly related to production. Okay, so direct cost is also called CGS, cost of goods sold. Okay, and indirect cost is also called OPEX. CGS and OPEX are accounting's terminology, right? So here, the conclusion of the direct cost directly related to production, right? Cost that's directly related to production, that's CGS. The conclusion of cost that's indirectly related or unrelated to production is called, operating and operating expenses. That's the result of sum of all of this. Now, directly related to production means, and I told you, accounting, in accounting they call it CGS, but in microeconomics they call it total variable cost. Okay, and indirect cost is called OPEX in accounting, but in microeconomics it is called total fixed cost, and they are not exactly equal to each other. They are approximately equal to each other, or equivalent, approximately equivalent to each other. That's why, the sign is, it's not this wave, right? Double wave, that's, approximately equal to, right? So let's think about the direct cost. What does direct cost mean? And it's directly related to production. That means directly related to, directly commensurate to or with the production level or the output level. Okay. So what it means, think about it. The cost that is directly related to production, then what would that be? What other factors of production? What other factors of production? I mean, in producing anything, any manufactured goods, in production of any manufactured goods, we need inputs, right? Isn't that right? You guys are so quiet. I don't know. So, Angelica.
Yes.
Angelica, are you
Yes.
there? Right.
Yes.
Okay. What are the inputs of production? I mean, think about it. In manufacturing any industrial good, like a computer, but even not in industrial goods, even let's suppose restaurant. Let's say you're running a restaurant. So you have your product is, or your output is the meal, right? The whatever plate it may be. But what goes into production of that meal?
Isn't it the labor behind it?
Yeah, there's labor, clearly.
Yeah.
But labor alone is not enough. I mean, just with you cannot produce a meal with only labor. What else goes into it?
Labor and ingredients.
Yeah, labor and ingredient. Okay, Brandon, yeah, it's only partial answer. I mean, Angelica, you got, you gave me a partial answer. So I will still give you 0.25. Brandon, you gave me still a partial answer. I'll give you 0.25. Yeah, obviously there should be labor and raw material rather than ingredient. I mean, if it is restaurant ingredient, yes, but in general, raw material, right? Raw material. You have to have raw material, isn't it right? And then sometimes the raw material is also called natural resource. Natural resource. Yeah. But raw material or natural resource is the same thing, right? And is that all? I mean, if there is raw material and natural resource, then then comes out from that, the final product just comes out. What else do you need?
Isn't it also like the environment or like the place that you're at?
Plate?
The
Or
place,
place?
yeah, like the
Place?
environment. Yeah,
Mm,
I mean, in a way.
Angela, no. Just because you have okay, so what do you mean by the place? Huh? Mm,
Uh,
just a,
I mean, I'm not too
who's
sure.
mhm.
It's me, Angelica, but I'm not too sure. But if you're at a restaurant, doesn't the environment that you're at in that restaurant has to do a lot with it, as in the place?
But environment is a kind of a broad a vague concept because restaurants environment mean what? I mean the neighborhood. It's the environment, right? It can mean also the neighbor. I mean if you are in a busy commercial district, right? The restaurant will really boom. I mean that can mean the environment. By environment, what do you exactly mean by environment? Now, think about it. Go back into the restaurant. You're preparing a meal. As you're
Utilities, something like that.
huh?
Utilities like electricity and other stuff like that.
Oh,
No?
yeah. But Brandon, look,
Hmm.
utility like electricity. What do you need the electricity for?
To power your machines, your equipment, like your oil,
Yeah. You said yeah. You to power what?
your equipment,
To power what?
your
The
equipment.
machines.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're running a restaurant, there must be uh, there must be something like there must be some equipment, even primitive form of equipment. You must have a refrigerator. You must have an oven, right? You must have some, you must have, soda machine or coffee machine and soda machine and
Assets? Oh, they call assets you're talking about?
yeah. Who said assets?
Me?
Naomi. Okay, Naomi. Yeah, Naomi. It's not the exact word, but you are close. In other words, you have equipment. You have assets. Physical assets are equipment. I mean, the oven, refrigerator, the grill. These are called equipment, right? And they are called, capital. They are called capital. These are capital. You might think capital means money. No, capital means means of production. Means of production, right? Means of production. So whatever serves to produce something is capital. It's called physical capital. Physical capital, right? Um, money capital. There are two types of capital: physical capital and money capital, right? So physical capital is basically your production equipment, right? If you are Dell, if you are the computer manufacturer, your plant, right? Your factory, your plant and equipment, that's your physical capital, right? Physical capital is also called physical assets. It's also called physical assets. Plant and equipment is your physical assets. Therefore, so Naomi, I will give you 0.25 for that answer. Brandon, you mentioned the machine. Machine is kind of physical capital. So I will. It's plant part of plant and equipment. So I'll give you 0.25 for that. So yes, think about it. In production of anything, there are three types of inputs that go into the production process, right? One, Nikri, I saw your hand, but I'll get to you. So there's labor, there's capital, and there's raw material. These are three. These are called factors of production, or inputs of production. Inputs. Yeah. Nikri, you had. Go ahead, Nikri. You raised your hand. Nikri, go ahead. Nikri, are you there? Are you speaking, or your microphone seems to be on, but there's nothing. You're not. Check your microphone. Check your volume. Microphone volume.
You hear me okay now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. So go ahead.
Oh, I was asking about production, like a staff to do the work.
That's labor. Your staff provides labor. Wasn't that right? That's labor. All right, that answered your question. Okay, so back to so think about it. If your production level goes up, in other words, your output goes up from you produce when you produce 0 unit. If you produce 0 unit, basically capital, labor, raw material used in the production is 0. Isn't it right? In other words, you didn't use any equipment, you didn't use any labor, you didn't use basically the direct unit cost. Let's say so let's take us to back to Dell, and assume that you are Dell, and Dell makes computers, and Model X. Remember, Best Buy was retailing this Model X for $500, but they are retailer, and the manufacturer, Dell, is the manufacturer, and of course, Dell is direct marketing. I mean, they started as a direct marketer. They sold directly to the consumers, right? End user consumers. So back in late 1990s, Dell started out as a direct marketer. They didn't sell through retail outlets, but because they wanted to cut down on the middleman. But now they are, sold through the retail outlets as well as direct marketing. But just assume that Dell is only selling through the retailers. Then the price that you charge to the retailer is not $500. Obviously, the price you charge the Best Buy will be, let's say, $300. The $300 is the manufacturer's price, right? It's also called ex-factory price. Ex-factory meaning the price leaving the factory, exiting the factory, right? Ex-factory price is $300. And then since Best Buy is a retailer, Best Buy sells it for $500. They have to mark it up, right? To cover their cost and to satisfy their profit margin, to meet their profit margin. So if the price Dell sells the computer is 300, then their production cost per unit, will be something like $200. We're just assuming that it is $200. So then that's the per unit production cost, isn't that right? $200 is the per unit production cost, and that per unit production cost consists of capital, labor, raw material. That's $200 production cost. Unit production cost is, if unit production cost is $200, that's all capital, labor, and raw material, right? And most of that $200 would be labor, and then material, and then capital. I mean, in that order, the proportion of the proportion of, or the weight of these costs would be, labor would be the biggest, then raw material, and then in most manufacturing that would be the case. Labor would be the biggest part of the cost, production cost. So then think about it. If you produce 0 unit, this per unit, because you produce 0, 200 times 0, 0, right? In other words, your production cost or total variable cost, right, is 0 if you produce 0 unit. And then if you produce 10 units, 1 unit is 200, 10 units, 2,000, 100 units, 20,000, 1,000 units, 200,000, right? 10,000 units, 2 million. In other words, you can tell, the direct cost changes directly with the production level, right? Does that make sense? Direct cost is called direct cost not only because it refers to the direct inputs of production, right? It's called direct cost not only because it's about the direct factors of production, right? But also because it changes directly with the output level or the production level. All right, does that make sense? And just like revenue basically goes up and down depending on quantity, right? Quantity sold, right? So your total revenue will go up if quantity sold goes up, right? Just like that, your direct cost goes up if the quantity built goes up. And then unit production cost, in other words, we assumed unit production cost is 200, right? It is also called average variable cost. Why? First of all, direct cost changes with the production level. So if you produce 10 units, it's going to be 2,000, 100 units, 20,000, 1,000 units, right? 200,000, and 0 unit, 1 unit, just 200. So we can tell direct cost is the unit production cost times quantity built or quantity made, quantity produced. But unit production cost is also the same thing as average variable cost. Why? First of all, variable cost means this cost varies with production level, right? That's why it's called variable cost, right? Vary means change, isn't it right? vary to, the word vary, the verb to vary is the same. It has the same meaning as the verb to change, right? So now you understand why it's called total variable cost, right? Total variable cost, because it changes, it varies with the production level, or output level. And total divided by quantity is what? If you divide total by quantity, if you divide total variable cost by quantity, it should give you unit production cost. Isn't that right? Because you arrived at total by unit production cost times quantity. So total divided by quantity will have to give you unit production cost. But then again, think about it. Total divided by quantity is called average. Isn't that right? You divide total divided by you divide total by quantity, then that's called average, right? So hence, its unit production cost is also called average variable cost. So um, total variable cost is another name for direct cost. Direct cost means it changes directly with the production level, and therefore total variable cost can we can break it down into average variable cost and quantity built or quantity produced. Okay. Um, so we can decompose it like, revenue. And also, if we define it mathematically, if you define direct cost mathematically, we can define it as average variable cost times quantity built, or unit production cost times quantity built. Okay. And I think it's, we are at 12:16. I think this is, this is the time to take a break. So let's take a 10-minute break and reconvene at 12:26, right? We have gone, right? So 12:26. All right, we're back. We're back. So the class is only until 12:40, so we have about 15 minutes. So I gotta really wrap it up very quickly. So then that explains, what direct cost is. And here's one thing. CGS. CGS stands for cost of goods sold. But then, if you think about it, cost of goods sold isn't exactly the cost of goods built, right? For example, you can, the Dell computer can make 10,000 Model X, 10,000 of Model X, right? Dell can build, 10,000 units of Model X, but if they could sell only 9,900 units, right? If that's all they could sell, then there will be 100 units left unsold, right? And then those 100 units left unsold will fall into the ending inventory, which will be carried over to the next period. But then from Dell's perspective, right? This is, excess. This is excess output or excess production, right? Or surplus, right? Why did this happen? Of course, this happens quite often. And the reason is why this happens is because we don't have perfect demand forecast. We don't have perfect demand forecast, right? If you can, have if you have a perfect foresight, then our demand forecast will be immaculate, right? But the reality is not like that. We don't live in an ideal universe. If you live in an ideal universe is a perfect universe. In a perfect universe, we will have, perfect foresight, and we will have, we can have perfect demand forecast, and we can produce exactly what will be sold, right? But the reality isn't like that. So our demand forecast sometimes can overshoot or sometimes undershoot the actual demand, right? But then still, if we sold only 9,900 units and we produced, 10,000 units, then clearly cost of goods sold is not the same thing as cost of goods produced, right? Makes sense? Cost of goods sold is not exactly the same thing as cost of goods produced. But why do we? So in other words, total variable cost is basically cost of goods built, right? It's average variable cost or per unit production cost times quantity built. So they theoretically they may not be the same thing. They cannot be equal. But why do we equate? Why do we think as if they are equal to each other? Why do we equate them? How can we equate them? Two reasons. One, we use ideal universe assumption. So in an ideal universe, right, demand will exactly meet supply. So there will be no excess supply or shortage of supply. It will exactly. But even if we don't use ideal universe assumption, even if you're not in an ideal universe, we are in real world. But in the real world, if you have 100 units left unsold, what will you do? Remember, Dell sells this computer for $300 to Best Buy. So for Best Buy, and Best Buy will sell that for 500, but forget about Best Buy. Anyway, 300 is then, the cost to Best Buy, right? Because Best Buy will have to pay 300 to Dell to acquire this Model X. It's a cost to them. But no matter what, forget about it. If there is 100 units left unsold, what would you do? Any idea?
Lower the price?
Yes. Is that Brandon? Was that Brandon? Was it Brandon that
Yes,
said that?
tell me.
Okay, Brandon. All righty. So you got 0.25, right? Another 0.25 for that. Yeah, you lower the price. That goes without saying. You have to lower the price, right? So it was 300. Now you drop it to a 290. Some, maybe not all of it, but some of it will sell. And then after that, you drop it to 280. Still, some of it will sell until you drop the price by $10 every time until you exhaust all remaining 100 units, right? That way, then the market will clear, right? Even without, in ideal universe assumption, the market will always clear. But even in reality, market will clear if you drop the price, right? And therefore, then you will end up with this, equality, this equation, right? Equality between CGS and TVC. Cost of goods sold will become exactly cost of goods produced, which is total variable cost. Okay, so this is how what direct cost is. And then let's think about indirect cost. Indirect cost is also called OPEX, operating expenses, right? Which is roughly equal to total fixed cost. But the indirect cost, here, these are the line items in operating expenses: rent, utilities, salaries, depreciation, R&D expense, marketing. These are all operating expenses. And operating expenses, as you can see, they are not directly related with the production level. In other words, these are relatively constant regardless of the output level. Whether you produce, even if you produce 0 unit, you will still incur operating expenses, right? You will still incur operating expenses. Even if you produce, 0 unit, right? And even if you produce 1,000 units, your rent doesn't change. Even if you produce 1,000 units or 10,000 units, 0 units, you still pay the same rent. Your utility will be pretty much constant because even without any production, you still need to light up the building, right? You still need to heat and air condition the building. It will pretty much be the same thing. Now, salaries. The salaries. Here's the two different things. You have two different kind of staff, two different kind of workers. One kind of workers are production workers. You understand? The workers that are directly involved in production activity. So they are working on the production line. These workers, their hours or their numbers will vary with the hours or their numbers will vary with the production level. Okay, and then the second type of workers are clerical staff, right? Administrative and clerical. Now, if you think about it, production workers, number of hours that the production workers put in will have to double if the production level doubles, right? Normally they produce 10,000 units per month, 10,000 units per month, and the hours that are required will be, let's say that's normal hours within 8 hours a day, right? Putting your workers to work, the production workers, for 8 hours on the assembly line, then 10,000 units are produced a month. But suddenly this month, the demand doubled. The demand doubled, so you have to double the production. You have to double the production. Okay? You have to double. Then what do you have to do? There are two things the company can do, two things that the management can do. Either double the hours of the workers, or double the hiring. Right? Makes sense? But double the hiring is not, first of all, either one, both options are too extreme. Why? First of all, doubling the hours. This is not physically, there's a physically limit because currently they are putting 8 hours a day. Doubling the hours means working 16 hours a day. I mean, the workers will, there's an incentive, their pay will double, right? Their pay will double. So some workers will, definitely, some workers will be willing to work double time because their pay will be double. But there's a physical limitation to this. People cannot work, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, straight 7 days a week, right? For the whole month, right? For the entire month, right? Up to a certain point, you can do that. For 1 week, maybe you can do that. At maximum, for 2 weeks, you can stretch it, for 2 weeks. But beyond that, you will break down. Just like, you cannot continue to work like 16 hours, the whole month. So what happens is, they will, and then, doubling the number of workers. That's you can just hire temporary workers because you cannot double the workers on, payroll, right? In other words, if you double the number of workers, there will be, through temps, right? But then think about it. If this is a skilled labor, I mean, working in the computer assembly line or automobile assembly line, these are all skilled labor. In other words, if you don't have any training, you cannot be put on the assembly line right away. And if you can hire, the temporary workers are not usually, skilled workers. I mean, if you can find skilled workers, wonderful. But skilled workers are generally not on temp line, right? They will be and if they are skilled workers, they will be already hired. They are already permanent workers, right? In another computer manufacturing company, right? So it's hard to get skilled labor in, from, temporary work labor pool, right? Which is, not entirely impossible, but rare and difficult. So most of the times it will be some combination of the two. The management will double the hours plus some temporary workers, right? But either way, one thing is clear. when the production level doubles, right? When the production doubles, then number of hours, the labor doubles. In other words, labor doubles either through number of hours, right? Doubling the hours, or by doubling the workers, right? So in that case, the wages paid to the production workers will have to double, right? On the other hand, clerical staff, number of clerical staff doesn't change that much. Just because, think about it. Just because the production level doubles, does that mean the number of secretaries will have to double? Secretary is a good example of clerical staff. Think about it. Just tell me, will the number Carolis, are you there, Carolis?
Yeah,
Carolis? Yeah.
do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh.
So, should the number of secretaries, will the number of secretaries have to double when production level doubles?
You said when production level lowers?
No, doubles. When the production level doubles, right?
I think so,
When the
yeah.
company doubles the production, right? Doubles the output,
Yeah.
will the number of secretaries double?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
If
Yeah, I already.
I mean, I said yes, but I mean, it depends. You said the number of secretaries, but you were just speaking about sometimes they either hire, like give more hours or hire more people.
Yeah, but they are production workers. But are the secretaries production staff?
No.
Secretary is a typical example of clerical staff, right? And
Yeah.
clerical staff are not involved in production activity. They are not working on the production line, right?
Yeah.
So then think about it. Number of secretaries doesn't have to double. Number of their hours doesn't have to double, right?
Correct.
So in other words, the wages, the salaries paid to the clerical staff, are relatively constant, right? It doesn't depend on the production level, right? The wages paid to the salaries paid to the administrative or clerical staff is independent of the production level. That's why indirect cost or operating expenses is also called total fixed cost. Fixed meaning it doesn't change with the production level, right? It doesn't change with the production level. It's relatively constant. And depreciation is the same thing. Depreciation doesn't depend on the production level. Depreciation is an artificial. It's how the plant and equipment depreciates, and it follows the artificial schedule, so it doesn't depend on the production level. R&D expense, marketing, none of those are directly related to production level. Hence, they are called indirect cost, and they are relatively constant, right? They don't change with the production level, and it's called operating expenses. But I'm gonna come back to the difference between operating expenses and total fixed cost next time because we're out of time already. So please, since we'll come back on Thursday, so still before we have 1 hour before the first quiz. But remember, first quiz is on this Friday. Okay. Alrighty. So that's it for today. I will. So have a good rest of the day. I will see you guys on Thursday. Okay. Alrighty.
Thank you, Professor. Have a nice day.
You too.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Take care, everyone. I will stop.